Good morning, everybody. It is Saturday, November 25th, one of the last days of college football, but we're here. Gloeck and Schrek back for another episode of CFB DFS, Masterminds from the Win Daily Sports Network. We're going to break down this huge slate, including Ohio State, Michigan, 12 games to pick from. And believe me, I say it's almost over, but we still got championship games. We still got bowls. There's good stuff left, but this is one of the last ones for us to get a full 12-gamer, and we're excited to do it today with you. I'm Dave Gluckner, and this is Joel Schrek. What's up, bud?
Listen, you said it right. It's sad that the season's coming to an end. You know, we're getting to the end of the season. It's winding down. It was a fun college football season. But on the other side of the coin, the end of the year for college football is sometimes the most fun because you start getting these weird, wonky 5-game, 4-game slates. You get bowl games, different types of games to play. So there's still a lot of fun to be had, some different ways we're going to be able to play it. But the season's coming to an end. And as we were saying before the show, as has been the case typically at the end of the year, the biggest games, the most fun game to watch, aren't necessarily going to be the best DFS game. So, what I always suggest is don't make the mistake of playing guys in the game you want to watch because you're going to be watching it. Play the right guys for DFS. Even though we've seen the Ohio State-Michigan game gone over in the past, it's typically not the highest scoring back and forth game. These are two strong defenses. I'll be watching the game, but I probably won't have too many DFS players.
Yeah, agreed. I can't wait to dial on that game for many reasons. One, the college football playoff landscape implications that game has, and two, just the sheer fan passion that's involved between those two schools. But three, from a DFS perspective, it's probably a punt for me. But there'll be some bets made, so it'll make it interesting. I'll make it interesting somehow, but I'm with you. It's not just the environment that game gives us, even though there was some high scoring last year. It's the pricing, right? We're still getting Michigan and Ohio State pricing against the Indiana's, Marylands, but now they're playing each other in two darn good defenses.
And that's it, spot on, totally. If you can if there's a value play in this game, I could certainly understand getting behind it, but the reality is, Michigan's offense is 80% going to Blake Corum, and it's a pretty tough defense. So, there's some other guys on this slate that it's probably I would rather spend up on if I'm going to spend up that much to get a stud player. And the same goes for Marvin Harrison Jr., who's obviously one of the best players in the country, but this probably isn't the spot for him to go up and have one of those ceiling games, and you certainly got to pay for him. So we'll break it down. We'll get into it. But there are some other spots on this slate where we can attack and have some fruitful fantasy game. So I'll pull up the screen, Dave. What do you think we dive right into this slate?
Yeah, let's do it. And if you played yesterday, Joel and I talked about it before the day. It was one of those. I got a lot into the Oklahoma TCU game, but I didn't play as heavy into the Utah State New Mexico game later because of some concerns and worries. But listen, it's exactly what he just said. You play that game, you win. It wasn't the most interesting game. It was probably the least interesting game on the slate. But an overtime game won by a quarterback rushing touchdown that was priced in the 5,000s. Yeah, that's a banger, and we might find some of those today. So let's dive right in.
Yeah, I'll add, it's a good point. Due to the end of the year and some teams being out of it, there's some late quarterback changes, some minimum price.
We might have lost Joel for a second, but I know where he was going with this. And the late swaps, especially when we looked at even TCU made a late swap going Hoover because their starter was getting healthy. So there are some instances and situations where people are going with younger players now, especially for the last week to see what they got. We're going to have one today when we look in this Pitt-Duke game right away. Obviously, Riley Leonard's out again. So are they going to, if Beelin's fine, it looks like he's going to be warming up, then, he's a decent play because Pitt's such a bad defense. But he hasn't played since week 8. Now, if that happens, then we might be looking at someone more. Let's see who else they got out there. Duke has their third loft. Yeah, he's been in the game several times. And as of late, put up some decent scores, averaging 22 over his past 2 games. So it's going to be interesting to see from this Pitt-Duke game how it's going to roll off. So let's look at it in total. As I'm not going to pull up the screen yet until Joel gets back. But as far as Pitt-Duke goes, not a high-scoring environment, but Pitt's D is very bad. We've seen, teams score a ton against them lately, including a Notre Dame team that doesn't score unless it's against Wake Forest, put up a big number against Pitt. So you have to at least entertain some Duke players going in here. So my first thought, and as we bring Joel back in, is to get into the passing game. Now, again, we're a little don't know what's happening at quarterback, but that's where Pitt has been really bad lately. So I think Moore is going to be in my player pool. He's been solid the past 2 weeks, averaging 28 DK points and getting 15 targets in those games. So I'll probably start off with a Duke passing attack to get a piece of this game. Joel, what's up, man? Just starting to get into this Duke Pitt.
Apologies. Internet issues this morning. Honestly, it might happen again. I'm stuck in this room, so if it does, I apologize. But Duke Pitt, not the most interesting game. I'm not going to be overly enthused. I agree with you. Moore has come on as of late. He's been their go-to guy. He's getting a ton of targets. If you're going to target someone, Moore would be my preferred. 5,700. I feel like the price is right. It's not too high. You can afford them. So I don't necessarily think it's a value, but it's a fair pricing. So I would play Moore. Maybe you consider, if you're looking for a cheap receiver, Means or Mumfield and Pitt, but definitely not a priority. Maybe a one-off throw in if you're looking to get some exposure here.
Yeah, I like Mumfield as if you're going to save about that low fours, mid fours left. Mumfield's just going to be steady for you. He's not going to break the slate. Maybe if he pops a touchdown, maybe we get high teens, and that's good at 4,500. So Mumfield is my other guy on the Pitt side and might play with a little run back. It's interesting with Waters because I like him, right? But it's, again, one of those situations where with this backup quarterback, I don't know how much Waters is going to get. Last game, he got just 12 carries. So he's either all or nothing, it seems like, this year. So at 6,100, I'm probably going to pass.
I agree. If they had him priced down cheaper, I would be interested. But at that price, I think it's worth looking elsewhere.
Yep. All right.
We can keep this train moving, and we'll take a look at the Kentucky-Louisville game. This Kentucky offense has been boring.
Yeah.
So they're not doing much. Even when Ray Davis had that bonkers game, he's been very quiet since then. Not a spot you really need to target. On the other side of the ball, Louisville has been effective. They've been dealing with injuries. They haven't really had their full roster. It looks like they're getting healthy this week for this game. But Kentucky's an SEC defense. It's a little bit stronger than they're used to seeing. I don't think this is a must-play spot for any of these guys. I'm actually going to be pretty low owned here. I'm not really prioritizing anyone in this game. How about you, Dave?
Yeah, I agree. There was a time we did like the Plummer combo, and when Thrash was running well, but 8,500 for a quarterback that doesn't do much else except throw the ball. He didn't even have a breakout. What was his stats against Miami last week? A team that you should typically 29-4. So I guess, but see, that game was a little bit more. He was in comeback mode. Had 5 attempts for 11 yards. I still think it's a lot against Kentucky, who does fare decently on defense. So yeah, I'm pretty much a fade here. The only one I'll ask you, Ray Davis is priced up, obviously. I will be interested in getting some of him. I know he's been kind of tapering off of late, but last time he faced a really good defense, it was Florida, or at least Florida was showing that they were good, and he went off. So I'm interested in, and Bama, he put up like 23 points against a good defense. So I think I might play Davis as a curveball. Uh-oh, he'd freeze up on us again. Well, at least he's thinking about my question. But yes, I will consider Davis today just from the standpoint of at 76K, he's actually right in the range he has been of late. And I think, if you're going to fade the Ohio State-Michigan game, you're going to be off Blake Corum. You're going to be off Travion Henderson. I think Ray Davis is a good little Euro step away from those two. So we'll move on to the next game. In fact, I'm going to try and bring up my screen as well because I think it does help when we start to talk about DFS and have it on the screen here. But the next game on tap is University of Houston versus UCF. This is one we want to play, right? No doubt about it. This is one you want to circle around and get a lot of players into this game. The first one for me is John Reese Plumlee. He's been obviously got injured early in the year. But since then, his revival, his worst game has been 18 points. And now you're getting a quarterback in the 8,000 range, which we always say you're going to see him in the 10, 11s, 9s. You see him today like Jaden Daniels. Here's Plumlee who could pop you 30. And that's bringing you back about, somewhere in the, 4 or 5X range. That's what you need at quarterback. I think John Reese Plumlee, very nice choice today. And one of the ones I'll start my quarterback pool with. He's probably in my top 4 of quarterbacks to play today. Joel, what do you think?
I love Plumlee today. I agree with you. Top four. I have a top four. It's my big four, the guys I'm prioritizing. He is very much so in that. And as we always say on this show, it's his rushing upside that makes him so dangerous. To get a quarterback with his rushing upside at only 8,200 compared to the top tier, it's a value. So against a pretty hapless Houston defense, this is a great spot for Plumlee. And I'll also okay with running them back with Smith. I mean, Smith also has some rushing upside.
Oh,
In
yeah.
a game that has some back and forth potential. Both guys under 8,500 at a good price. I think both guys are in play in a good game environment.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to try and bring up the DraftKings as well here. I know you are normally able to. Here we go. So, yeah, today looking at this game solely, Plumlee, sitting well 8,200. And then we could – why isn't it showing me both quarterbacks here? Oh, here we go. And then Smith at 8,200 as well. Both good plays. Now, looking in the passing and running game, because obviously both have good offenses there, I'm kind of intrigued, and I have been a lot this year, by Harvey. I think Harvey is still a good play at 7,200. He's one that, one of the few workhorses in college football anymore.
Yeah, Harvey is big, and he's coming even on hot as of late as well. I mean, in the last – since week 6, I mean, even you can even go back to week 5, but I'll call it week 6. He's got 22 points, 16, 20, 40, 40, 30, 23. He's getting on average about 20 carries a game. And again, this Houston defense is hapless. They are poor. I imagine UCF is going to score a lot of points and kind of do what they want. So I'll have plenty of exposure to Harvey as well.
Yeah, I think he's probably – as much as I'll get Plumlee involved, I hate the UCF passing game. So that's why I think Harvey is probably my step back mode here. 272nd against running backs in college football is what? Or 278 they're even showing as passing as a total defense. So, yeah, it's a good matchup. Now, on the wide receiver side, you got anything in this?
Before we go to one thing I will add about to be concerned about Harvey or thought is he's going to be very high owned. So just know what you're eating chalk with Harvey this week, which is fine. So that's going to be a high owned guy. On the receiver side, I'll pair Baker with Plumlee in those labs. Baker's been the go-to guy. He's got a knack for making a big play. He's my preferred preference, but I'm not prioritizing too much on the receiver end here.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, those last few games, here's why I can't get too much of Baker, even though I know he's been good. He relied on a 71-yard touchdown.
Yeah.
And then, his other 38, 40, he had a low one against West Virginia, but then an 86 against Oklahoma. Like, it's hard to kind of redo those, even though Houston's so bad. I like Baker, but I'll just say be careful.
Well, you're spot on. He's a big play receiver, so you're relying on him getting a big play. And
yeah,
he's probably going to miss. He's not going to get you there with 8 catches for 100 yards. That's not how he is. So it is for me, I'm playing a lot of GPP, so it is a GPP type play because he has that big play ability. But you are banking on a big play here.
Yeah. As for Sam Brown, he's been a guy we loved all year, and then has kind of really tapered off against teams he shouldn't have. Oklahoma State really bad against the pass. Only 3 for 39 last week. I might be stepping away from Sam Brown right now. I don't know if I can take a chance on a guy that's kind of submarine a couple of my lineups lately.
Yeah, and especially at 6,600, I'm going to spend up elsewhere. The UCF pass defense is actually pretty good. That's their strength. Their weakness is the run. So teams want to attack them on the ground. So I don't think this is the best spot for Brown.
Yeah, I would even consider Manjack a little bit. My only and he's been steady, right? Look at his points. He's 19, 15, 20, 18, 12. So if I get involved in the passing game as a run back at UCF, I'll look more at Manjack with $700 less than Brown. So, all right. Anybody else in this game?
That's it. I mean, another home run play that you can look at is Hudson, the other receiver for UCF. He doesn't get a ton of targets. That's another guy you're banking on a big play, but he's a little bit cheaper if that's the route you want to take. Yep.
All right. Let's move over to this other game here. And the one that, I say UCF, UH is a big one. This might be the biggest one of the day. Now, you just got to hope that it stays somewhat competitive, which I think it will. But, yeah, this is where, you're going to see a lot of people playing, and that starts with Jaden Daniels.
Listen, and the most interesting thing about this to me is at this point, they're allowing him to go out there and try and win the Heisman.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I almost think the blowout's not a concern because I think their biggest motivator here is to get him to boost his stats and to get him the Heisman Trophy. So I envision him going out there and letting him do whatever he wants, and he'll run up the score and just get points. I normally, when a quarterback's priced up this high, try to shy away, but I think this is a spot where Daniels has an opportunity to kind of pad his stats and make his Heisman Trophy campaign. So I'm going to go there, and I'm going to be playing with Tim Daniels today.
Yeah, total 66.5. The other game 61. So looking at this, just look at Jane Daniels' his last two games, 68, 65. If we compare it to a guy like we just said, Reese Plumlee, who's 8,200, this is 6x. Reese Plumlee's got to get 48 to even match that 60-some that Daniels can get. Plumlee's not getting 48. So my case in point, love Plumlee, but Daniels is still in play. If he can get anywhere near 50, he's worth this salary. And with the 66.5 point total, I think he can.
And the interesting thing, like if you look at these box scores, especially the last couple of weeks, he's two players in one. You're getting a running back and a good one, an all-star running back, as well as a good quarterback in one player. So that's where it's like you can justify paying up because of how high his ceiling is.
Now, right before we get into the rest of this game, you said something interesting. Heisman, right? Last night I decided to sit down, have a cocktail, watch some Oregon State. And for so long, we've done the show, and it's funny to laugh at Bo Nix, just how bad he was at Auburn. And last year, I was like, this is just fool's gold. I really think Bo Nix can play now. Like, I'm convinced he can play in the NFL. And when you talk Heisman, I think it's between him and Daniels. I know they're going to have Harrison mixed in there as well. But what's your thoughts on Nix, since we probably won't get to see him much more?
It's an interesting point. Bo Nix has come a long way.
Yeah.
I'm going to pump the brakes a little bit on the NFL for this. I think he's a great college quarterback. And that's good. There is, to me, something to be said for someone having as much experience as he has and being in an offense that, you put a guy with his experience in college football who knows what he's doing and around a really good team with good playmakers, and he executes really well. Yep. And that's where I think he's an outstanding college quarterback. I still have hesitations on the NFL because – if you put Bo Nix on the Giants, and in fairness, I don't know many people that would succeed on this Giants team right now, but there's a lot of factors that are going in his favor on his Oregon team that would not exist on the New York Giants. So
true.
That's part of it. He doesn't. The thing with Nix is he doesn't have the most rocket cannon arm. He's not the fastest guy. So without having the other things in place, I don't know if he can carry a team on his own.
Yeah, my thought is just, and it's not, I just think he can play in the NFL from the standpoint of Tommy DeVito stunk at Syracuse, I think it was.
True. Yes.
Tim Boyle stunk at UConn or wherever else he played. Those guys had the spirit and heart, and they hung around to be good backups. I think Nix has shown he's got that kind of motivation. But it's interesting. It's just funny because I was a Bo Nix hater. I'm putting it up there. I was an absolute hater. Now I'm a supporter. So it's been fun to watch. But let's get back into this game. On the other side, is Max Johnson going to play today?
That's news.
He's suiting up, but not going to start.
And that's news you got to keep an eye on. If they say he's not starting, then we have confirmation. That's what we need to know because whoever is playing quarterback against LSU is a good play. Right. Defense is atrocious, and they're going to score. So it's going to be a back-and-forth game. I hope it is Jalen Henderson because I think Jalen Henderson gives us some upside. I'd rather play Jalen Henderson if he's the guy. And it's mainly because of the rushing. I mean, he's run the ball in his 2 starts 12 times each. So if we're going to get 10 to 15 rushes to go along with whatever passing he'll give us in this game, I think he has plenty of upside at 6,400.
I agree. This update's from yesterday at 5 o'clock and says set to be the starting quarterback. And that's enough for me to have confidence in starting Jalen Henderson. But just keep an eye out for it before game time because Johnson is the more senior quarterback. So who knows what new head coach will do down there. But with that said, Henderson, oh my gosh, 6,400 against LSU with a guy that runs 12 times a game. He's in my top 2 of quarterbacks today. If he does get the start. That's why I asked about Max Johnson. I like Jalen Henderson a ton. And the other fact of the matter is, like you said, you're never out of a game against LSU. You could be down 40, a couple runs here or there. You're back in this game. So, yes, I think both quarterbacks in play. What else do you like? Running back-wise, anything?
The challenge with running backs with both teams is like 3 or 4 guys on each team can get carries. And that's just way too much sharing of the load. If we had any indication that one guy was going to get the guaranteed carries, then I would like them because of the game environment. But With this much sharing of the load, it's really hard. Last game, Ruben Owens got 18 carries. If I knew that would be the case again, he'd be interesting. But it looks like Moss is playing and Daniels. So I think it's just a hard thing to rely on there.
Yeah, I agree. And Diggs is still, a decent possibility. But, like you said, Jane Daniels gets more carries than him. So it wasn't since, the Mizzou game, I would say, that 24 carry game, 18 against Auburn, but that they really kind of focused the run because they knew they needed to. But I think they're done. Like you said, it's showcase time. So I'm off the running game completely in here. And then now we'll get into quarterback, the receivers. I want to get Neighbors involved. I'm not sure I can with the price of Daniels. I think I got to go one or the other.
Between Daniels and who?
Neighbors. I don't know if I can pair them up. That's 20,000. That's almost, that's 40% of my salary.
It is hard. There are some value plays this week that I'm using that I'm able to make it work, and I'll get to who those guys are and how I'm doing that. Yeah, you got to build a pretty unique lineup to make that work. It is a tough thing to do, but it is a good correlation. It goes hand in hand. I mean, if Neighbors has a big day, likely Jaden Daniels will as well. So you just got to pick it. Obviously, it's going to be really hard to play, Neighbors, Daniels, and another stud. So you got to really pick your spots on who you're going to prioritize. You obviously won't be able to build a lot of lineups with all of them because you're going to run out of value. But I think there's a couple lineups you can squeeze them in if you play your value plays right.
All right. I like it. I look forward to those value plays. Now, on the other side, I'm pretty sure, and unless someone has passed him, Brian Thomas Jr. still leads the nation in pass reception touchdown. So he's a guy that, we do want to consistently target here. He's up to what? 3, 5, 8, 9, 11, 13, 14 receiving touchdowns. So still he translates and correlates well, I think, in the Daniels game. So I'm going to have a little more Thomas. I don't know about you.
I mean, yeah, Thomas definitely more affordable. He certainly has similar upside with the touchdown. So I'm okay with both plays as much as you can.
All right. How about on the A&M side? We love Stewart early in the year, but it's just been a colossal disappointment since Wagman went out. So it's been Smith, and Smith had a good game last week. Well, 2 weeks ago, I should say.
Yes, Stewart's actually out, which might be a little helpful in finding us maybe another value receiver on this team, knowing that there's going to be more routes and targets to go around. Smith is the premier receiver of the rest of the bunch. He's the guy you want. But I think you can maybe find some of your value plays here and one of these cheaper guys. My favorite, but I don't have a big lean, is probably Jade Walker, who showed last week for 4 with 88. 2 weeks ago into Ole Miss, he had 8 for 100. So he's had a couple big games recently at 4,600. We've seen Moose Muhammad have some big days before. Yep. He's also a slot receiver, so it's a little repetitive with Smith, but he's on the field, especially in this shootout type of game. So I think you get some upside with Muhammad. And Noah Thomas is going to be the other guy who's going to get all the routes. He hasn't really had a big game, but he has 5 touchdowns. So if he's going to get more targets because Stewart's out, maybe he's a spot where he gets in the end zone and gets some upside at only 4,300.
Yeah, I think I like the Thomas play out. Well, Muhammad's been good too. They've all been solid, but only one of them breaking out. If you have to pick one, I might lean Thomas over all of them. So, yeah, we'll see. Good picks again against a great matchup here. Anything else you got left in this game? Tight ends or anything?
That's it for this game. I am going to have a lot of exposure here, and it's one of those with such a great game environment. I'll take some shots on some of these receivers. Someone's going to have a big day. It's not obvious who, but it's worth just having some game environment stacks here to get exposure to this shootout. Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's get into quickly the game of the day. Like you said, McCord at 8,200. We've already talked about quarterbacks with better. You can just go back to last game with 6,400 at Texas A&M. McCarthy 89. I'm off both. Yeah, I'm to be honest with you, I'm a full fade on the game here.
Okay.
I just think, listen, if it's another shootout like last year, it's going to be a losing day for me. I think the reality is these are 2 of the top 5 defenses in the country. I would imagine the defenses prevail in this game more than anything. The one guy I'd be most interested in, if any, is Marvin Harrison Jr. Yeah. But at 9K, at that point, I'd rather go up there and try and get Neighbors than stretch for him. Yeah, I agree. I will say I know his price is getting up there a little bit here and there, but let me pull up the game this way. I do like Cade Stover a little bit if I was going to get in this game.
$4,500, I think, is still a decent price for, a guy that could get volume versus a good defense. And Stover's had one or two of those games, right? He had a 12 last week, 20 the week before. He had 21 against Purdue. 4,500, if he gets you 20, I think it's a smash. So Stover's someone, again, if you're kind of leaving a little bit of extra room, I think Stover could be a decent play. Loveland's the other guy I've played here and there, and now he's getting a few more looks lately, but he's got to get in the end zone to make it worth it. He's tall, but I prefer Stover, I think. But these are two cheaper plays I'll play. I won't play the upper tier in this game.
I like your call on Stover. He's their tight end, but he's been pretty involved. They get him the ball. He's a big part of this offense. He can break one. He gets in the end zone at only 4,500. You can stomach that price for him with the upside. So I agree with to your point that if you're gonna take some shots in this game, do it with value. That's how you'll get there. And Stover's, I think, has one of the most clear paths.
Right. All right. Let's move on real quick to this Navy SMU game. Interesting, right? But I just don't know if Stone is going to be someone that I entertain, but how much do you? I mean, Navy's tricky, right? Some games we're seeing them play good pass defense, but I don't know if it's the opponent or not. That it's hard to play teams against Navy, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's also like it's hard to get that game environment with Navy because they play a little slower on offense, so it's hard to get that back and forth like you're looking for. I will say Stone has been really good. I mean, he's had in his last 5 games, he's got almost 4 30-point games, which is excellent. He can rush a touchdown in and get there at the arm, but at 8,400, I just think there's some other spots we can go to at quarterback. My preference in this game on the SMU side is going to be at running back. If I'm going to play anyone, I think LJ Johnson Jr. at only 4,800, really cheap. He's taken over the reins of this backfield. He's gotten 20 carries each of the last 2 weeks. He's gone for over 100 yards. That's how I want to prioritize this offense.
I like it. I like it a lot. I think, and then you're looking at a Navy team that against the pass, not great. Against the run, okay. So, but again, it's the pace. And if you're going to play a slower pace, running, you're okay to take some running backs. I totally agree. I think even in a slower pace game, he's going to get up to 20 carries.
For sure. They've gotten the running game going with him now. He's kind of taken over the backfield. So I think the price might still be low because he's still newer as the primary back.
Yeah. And then, from passing perspective, I mean, RJ Maryland, again, you're banking on a big play. As you can see here, last week it was just a 43-yard touchdown, but it's been consistently above 10 every week at 5,000. He's okay, but I'm probably out on this game receiving-wise.
I am as well.
All right, let's move over to Colorado and Utah, who I don't know anymore. Ever since they went to the new offensive coordinator, things have slowed down in Colorado land, and Sanders is obviously questionable. He left, I think, after halftime last game. I don't know.
If Sanders isn't playing, Colorado's untouchable. I mean, you don't know what this offense is going to look like without Sanders. So if Sanders plays, I'm still not that high on them because he's questionable. I don't know what they're going to look like. But if he's confirmed out, then it's just complete blank. I'm not playing anyone on the Colorado side. However, the Utah side is very interesting today because let's not forget, this is a bad Colorado defense. And the news is, with Barnes out, we're getting a minimum priced quarterback. And Botari, there's a lot of unknown about him. He's only 4,500. If he's going to get the full go against this really bad Colorado team, I think it allows you to – that's the starting point of what allows you to start building lineups with Neighbors and Daniels and things like that. So Botari, for me, is definitely going to be a play.
Yeah, I love it. I guess Johnson entered the transfer portal. Barnes out, like you said. Batari's in a great spot. I'll make one other comment on Colorado, and it's this. I think, as we said, that Daniels is kind of that spotlight trying to get him into the transfer portal. Trying to get him the Heisman. I think the opposite is with Sanders. They're just getting him ready for the pros. I think they're just going to start hiding him, knowing how bad that offensive line is, and it's protecting him. So it says he's sick today. Whatever. I think it's something else going on, and they're just not going to play him. So I'm a full fade on the Colorado side. Now, running game, he came back last week and last few weeks, and he's been solid, not great. But Jaquindon Jackson, anything on him?
I like Jackson today. His price is low, 5,300 is affordable. The last couple weeks, he's only gotten 10 carries, which isn't great. Arizona's got a tough defense. Washington's got a good run defense. We've seen him pop for those big games against, Arizona State, USC. Um, I think this is a spot, especially with a unknown quarterback playing, they might give him a couple extra carries, which would be big. So Jackson for me is in play.
All right. And then, Baki hasn't played. The biggest side for me is, and we had him last week, but he's still way underpriced, is Vele. He once again popped last week. I mean, look at 3 straight games of 22 points or more, and he's only $5,000 against the Colorado defense that just bleeds points. I think this is just one of my favorite plays of the day. I don't care who's a quarterback. That might be because, of the quarterback uncertainty. I'm really not familiar with Batani's game, but I don't care. Vele has just been, the targets, the catches, everything's there.
Yeah, Vele's been amazing. 5K, still very underpriced. You can get some real upside out of him in this matchup, especially against a very poor Colorado pass defense. So Vele, one of my favorite plays of the day.
All right, you got anything else in this game?
So another sneaky value play I'm going to highlight here. I'll own it. A couple weeks ago, I highlighted we always want to target the tight end against Colorado. And the week that I said that, it was against Arizona, and the guy didn't have a catch. And like, it was literally his worst game of the year. And I was like, it's such a miss. But if you look at the rest of the year, they get beat by tight ends. Now, last week, Washington State doesn't really play a tight end, or I don't throw him at all. He doesn't have any kind of catches. So I kind of disregard that because there wasn't a spot. But today, it's kind of one of those spots where it's like the perfect spot. And Landon King is coming around. In the last 3 weeks that he's played, he had 4 for 43, 2 for 20, 4 for 63. So he was not doing much early in the year. He is now his role is growing. And what a time for your role to be growing than to come up against the Colorado defense that's gotten torched by tight ends all year. I think this is a good spot for King. At 3,300, it's a value play. You can play him with one of the cheapest quarterbacks on the slate, which allows you to do a lot with your lineup. So I'm playing Vele and I'm playing King a lot. And it allows me to get a lot of guys into my lineups elsewhere because of those price tags.
There's the secret sauce at how to get to Daniels and Neighbors. I love it. Good way to, kind of dive deep into the Utah. They're a tight end heavy team too. I mean, if you guys probably know, but Kincaid came out of there obviously and is doing well in the pros. And then they had 2 guys. I mean, they're hurt now, but Yasmin and where's the other one? I think it's Usurpson or so is we're good tight ends until they got hurt. So they're going to focus the tight ends here. So I think King's a great play. I'll get him in my lineups. All right, let's move over to the next game here. BYU OK State. This one's big. And when I say it's big, OK State can get a spot into the Big 12 finals today and leap over their hated Sooners with a win against BYU. So I expect their best, and their best is going to start up top, obviously, with Gordon. Ever since the tip of the iceberg 55-point game, he hasn't disappointed. Another 47, 44. The one against UCF still doesn't make sense, but I don't think today changes. BYU is not very good anywhere, but especially against the rush, ranking 265th.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to get 30 touches easily. I don't see him having a poor game. I think what you have to look at in Gordon is the ceiling high enough, right? Because if he goes under 30, which is still a really good game, under 30 fantasy points is probably not enough at 9K. They finally priced him appropriately. I think he goes over. I think he has a great day. I will be playing Gordon in the spot where I can get him in. I'm not prioritizing him as much as I was in previous weeks now that the price is 9K.
Yeah.
I think he's a higher ceiling, but I'll still be playing him.
Yeah, I could still see myself. I hate playing 9K. We all do. It just hurts my lineups, but it's such a good matchup and such a good spot and a lot of motivation. I'll still see myself hopefully getting maybe 20% of Gordon, maybe a little less, but it won't be heavy like you said.
Exactly. And I will say one of my favorite running back plays on the slate is also on the other side here with Robbins at only 4,100. This is a great price tag for a running back against this Oklahoma State defense is bad. They're good on offense, but they haven't gotten a lot of stops. And Aiden Robbins has recently taken over this backfield. Last week, he had 22 carries for 182 yards against Oklahoma. And one thing I look at there is his long was only 25 yards. That means he was just chopping them up all game. It wasn't like he broke one long run to get there. So With him coming around as their top guy at only 4,100, another really good value with some upside against the poor Oklahoma State defense.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I watched that game last week. That was one where Gabriel went out at half with a concussion. So BYU was able to slow the game down a little bit too. So again, I don't think that mattered. He was going to get the carries, and he's definitely their number one. I love that call. I'm with you there. From a wide receiver, well, first off, I'm not in the quarterback game this week. I just, I don't love it either way. Unfortunately, with how good the offense is in Oklahoma State, Bowman just doesn't do enough for me. I don't know about you, but even at 7,100, he's maybe a 20-point guy.
Yeah, I agree. You probably don't get the super ceiling out of Bowman. I think he has a pretty safe floor, though. So, I can understand the use case of playing Bowman in that he has some weapons. They move the ball. Not a guy at Bowman I'm not prioritizing or love, but I do think you can get some of these pass catchers in your lineup.
Yeah,
because they have an offense that has a tendency to score a lot of fantasy points. Listen, what we saw last week from Presley was eye-opening. If he's going to get anywhere near 19 targets again, then at 5,900, he's a smash play. Now, I think it regresses back to the norm somewhat. It's hard to imagine he gets another 19 targets. But if that stays around 12 or 14, I still think he'll be a really good play today.
Yeah, I love it. He came out of nowhere. And then obviously Leon's been great. He had a little lower end game, but still got a touchdown last week. It has been really consistent. But when someone gets 19 targets, you're going to be left out in the dark a little bit. And that's what happened with Johnson. I expect his to go up today. I like both 5K, 5,900. Now, would there be a situation if you played both that you wouldn't play Bowman? Are you okay playing two receivers without a quarterback? Or you prefer you got to have the quarterback?
No, I normally would say if you're going to play two, you got to play the quarterback. This is probably the one team where you could play two and not the quarterback because of how explosive their offense is. So, and because the receivers are affordable. None of these guys are over 6K. So, I think you can get away with it with Oklahoma State this week.
Now, Roberts is interesting from BYU, right? I know he didn't, again, they ran it a ton more last week, but he's had some big games in the past. This year been a little slower because BYU was not great in the passing game, but there's that game against Cincy where he had a breakout, one against Southern. So, any interest in the BYU passing game?
Not much. Again, it is a good spot for them. If you want to take a shot on one of these guys, I'd be okay with it. The guy I would prefer in the BYU passing game is probably Rex because he's so much cheaper than the rest, and I think he has as much upside in that he's their big tight end and he can score touchdowns. So if I was going to play any, I would probably look at Rex the most, but I'm not prioritizing too much.
All right. Let's move on to the next game. Arizona, ASU. What a rivalry in the desert. And one where, Arizona has flashed a pretty decent defense of late, which, and Arizona State's played a little bit better as well. But Arizona State's defense is terrible. And that's where I think we got to start to look at it. And for me, I'm pretty sure Fafita is playing again today. He's been solid. They're on a win streak, right? So I think they're going to stick with who they got here. He's been just very, very solid, but I think he goes up today and scores mid-20s. And if so, at 7,400, I think he's one of my top four quarterbacks I'm playing.
I'm totally okay with Fafita. I like to call it. This Arizona football team is good. They've been playing some good football. Fafita has been moving the ball. I'm not going to be playing too much Fafita today, but that could be a mistake. It just hadn't been the guy in my lineup based on pricing. But I certainly can see the upside here. So I'm not going to kind of steer anyone away from him.
Yeah, and Fafita, he had better rushing games. That's the concern here is that, early on he was getting the 9-6 carries, and now it's not been much of late. But I think that changes a little bit today against a bad Arizona State defense. But we'll see. What else do you like in this game?
I will call out. I'm not going there because I prefer Utah's quarterback at the minimum price. But Rashada is going to start for Arizona State, and he's also a minimum price quarterback. So if you're looking for a value quarterback, look at these minimum price guys. Rashada's in play too. But my preference is going to be the Utah quarterback over him.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. But I do think this is an interesting spot, right? You could have a little fun with even, Rashada and the Utah guy, Babita. So you could actually you could spend less on those two quarterbacks than you would on Jane Daniels. So you could get interesting there and then really pay up for some players. But from the running backs, here's what's killing me. I love Coleman one week, love him again last week, and then Wiley comes in and does, his thing. Not with the carries, but in the passing game. And then he pops for 26 points. I don't know who to take here, but I really do want to take one of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I still think Coleman's the guy. He's going to get the carries. I think the issue you run into with Wiley back, it kind of caps how many carries he'll get. It's hard for him to see him getting more than 15 carries if they're going to give Wiley 5 or 6 too. So it does limit Coleman's ceiling a little bit, but he's a really good talent, and he can break off a run and get you there. So at 5,300, because of his price, Coleman's in play. Not a must play, but he's in play.
And Warren checking it, saying he hears that there's a chance. Yeah. And that's a good point too. When you do pay down for a quarterback like that, there's a good chance that, they struggle, they're pulled, or they want to play two different styles. So good point. I wouldn't get too heavy with Arizona State, like we said at the quarterback there, but good point, Warren. That is that could be a concern. Wide receiver wise, I mean, Scatterbo's always in play, right, for Arizona State. But again, the problem, the price isn't bad. And the carries have been just not as good lately. So I'm probably off Scatterbo because how good Arizona has been of late, ranking in the top 100 in the rush defense. So
I agree with you. The Arizona's defense has been good. Not a spot to prioritize him there. On the receiver end, there's two guys I like in this game above the rest. McMillan, who has been Arizona's top guy, who's really come on as of late. Even in the last 2 weeks, 9 catches for 107 yards, 8 for 116. He scored a touchdown in the last 4 games. They've priced him up. This is the most expensive he's been at $7K. But I think against a pretty lowly Arizona State defense, he could certainly get there. I like McMillan, and I like Badger, who's Arizona State's top guy.
Yes.
They throw him a ton. So to get a guy who's going to get as many targets as he's going to get at under 6K is a good value.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning Badger again last week, and even in a blowout loss, I mean, he gets to 14 points. And at this price, he's in the range of a couple other 5K guys we like. So I do like Badger. McMillan will be my preferred stack with Fafita. So, yeah. And then Callaway's going to be in there too. I might play some games where I get the 3 of them. But to be honest, my preference in this game is to just play one quarterback, one receiver from the Arizona side. So I'll decide how I'm going to get that. I think this week out of any, for me, I want to be a little bit – I don't know if I want to be one game heavy. I think there's a lot of environments to choose today.
Yeah, totally. You definitely want to mix up some of these games because there's plenty of good scoring environments this week.
All right. And then, yeah, I mean, you're right. It's going to be hard. And that's what we can do. Solid picks. Good point. And Ollie Gordon's going to be in a lot of – we talked about it earlier, and it's going to be hard getting away from, playing him in anything. So if we can get there and play different at quarterback, I think we can get to Gordon in a lot of ours. Talking about getting different at quarterback today, Joe Milton's been decent. And I think, he has some potential here. Not a great game against UGA, but whoever has good games there. But Vanderbilt still can't get it right on defense, ranking 312th against the pass.
If there's a get-right spot for Joe Milton, right, if this is it. I mean, the Vanderbilt defense is terrible. I imagine Tennessee is going to do what they want. If there's a day Milton has an upside game, I would imagine it's today. His price is right. I'm okay with Milton today.
Yeah, I think he's a solid play. Not my top 4 of quarterbacks, but definitely in play. And not playing anything on the Vanderbilt side. Can go through this real quick. And Wright's been solid. Again, he gets the carries even against Georgia. Had a decent game. I don't know. I don't know how much I'll get with Wright, but he's had some 20-point games, and at 5,200, I think he's worth a look.
Yeah, I mean, my only issue with Wright is that they share carries so much in this backfield. There's so many guys to get the ball. I like Wright. I think he has upside. I might be playing a little bit more of taking a shot on Jabari Small, who's out. He came back against Missouri. He's been back for 2 weeks. I think his usage is going back up from what it used to be. If he gets back up to 12 carries, he's 3,100. He's so cheap. It's another way for you to be able to get some studs into your lineup. So Again, I don't think Small's a smash play, but he's a guy you can play at near minimum price that might be able to get in the end zone and get you some value.
And great point. Listen, if this turns into a blowout, Small's probably the guy getting the carries in the fourth quarter. So, you see some of these games where he has gotten double-digit carries. He could get there today. South Carolina was one. Vanderbilt. Oh, not Vanderbilt. That was UVA early in the season. So, yeah, I like it. Now, from the passing, I'll be honest, Squirrels disappointed me this year. I just thought it was going to be one of those. I mean, they got a couple guys Hyatt drafted last year that we love to target, and yet this year we just haven't got there. So I think I'm out in the pass game. What about you?
It's not a priority. I will play a little Squirrel, again, to the point of if there's a get-right game, a get-right team, it's this one, and they're pretty bad. I think Squirrel has the ability to make a big play and under 6 get there. Again, not a priority play, but someone I'll sprinkle in.
Yeah. Other than that, again, I just don't want to be too heavy in this game. I think I'll find some other spots. I'll play some one-offs here, like the Milton, like potentially Wright. I might even listen to Small, but let's look at the next game here, and it's a big one from, again, the eye test, but maybe not the DFS test. But I'll tell you, like, what has happened, I had Milrow recently. I don't think I can get there at 9,500. I know he's had some 50s. I just don't know if he's going to get there today against a very, I'll say, a critical rival, a game that I think is going to have a lot of energy in it. I don't know. At 9,500, I feel like he's a little too much for me today.
Yeah, Milrow has the upside. The issue with Milrow is you're relying on like a 3 rushing touchdown game.
You are.
That's how he gets that upside. He can do it. Auburn, I don't know. I'm with you. I just think if I'm going to spend up that much, there's some other guys I want to get to. I can see Milrow getting there, but you got to pick and choose your spots. I'm just not going to go there with this one.
So the games he had multiple rushing touchdowns. He scored 36, 25, 51, 42. If he doesn't get to even a multiple rushing touchdown, he hasn't gone over 23 yet. Like, that's it. You're relying on that rushing touchdown. And Auburn not great against the run, but if there's one thing they should do is just stack against that, which it looks like, Kentucky tried to do recently. So, but he still got 3 touchdowns. So, yeah, I'm off that. Anything else in this game you like?
Not much. I mean, maybe if you want to force McClellan in, thinking it's a rivalry game, I could see it. But this is definitely not a game I'm going to be prioritizing.
Yeah, I agree. Even Burton's priced up a little much for me. The one they're talking about, Kobe Prentice here. He came back and played. He had a couple off weeks, but played against UK recently. Good game. Price is right, 4,800. You could get a decent, Alabama receiver that extends the field. So I'll consider Prentice a little bit, but again, you got to score a touchdown for him to be worth it.
Yep, I'm with you on that.
All right, our last one, and one that probably highlights the slate a little bit like the previous couple that we liked in the UCF game. Washington State, the Apple Cup, as they like to call it. Penix, I'm going to be interested in. I really am. I know it's a lot, but, we just talked 9,500 for Milrow. I think I can speak myself into a rivalry game. One, it doesn't mean as much for Washington because, well, it still does. I shouldn't say it. They're getting in the Pac-12 championship. They're already there. But to stay in the top 4, they need to win, and they need to keep winning impressively. And that's what they've been trying to do. They've had a couple close ones of late. I think they try and open this one up.
Especially this being the last game. This game defines the pick your spot of the day, right? You're not going to be able to play Penix and Daniels. It's going to be hard to figure out Penix and Gordon. So you pick your spot. Where do you want to be? What game do you want to be your focus? This could certainly be the game that goes over, and then this is the spot you're picking over the others. And I'm totally okay with that. I like both quarterbacks in play here. I mean, as we know, Ward can run. Ward can run a few in. The Washington defense leaves something to be desired. That this could become a shootout game. So, I'm looking to play this game in that, I'm going to game stack it. If I'm playing guys in this game, I want to get as many as possible. And then otherwise, if not, I'll kind of focus on other games. So I think Penix and Ward are in play.
All right. I like it. And then from a running back situation, I normally fade the Wazoo running game, and it's priced to that point. Dylan Johnson's good. And he's been very good of late. he had that 55-point game against USC. But it's just, I don't know. I just think the passing game's more where I want to be today. What about you?
Well, my biggest thing with Dylan Johnson is he's been in a walking boot all week. They say he's going to play and he's going to get over it, but I'm having doubts of how healthy he is. If he's in a walking boot, I don't think he's going to be 100% at $7K. I think I'm probably going to go look elsewhere and prioritize something else, at least because of my health concerns. And the other side of the coin, if you told me now that he was not playing, then I would love to get one of the backup running backs in there as a value play. But because it's the last kickoff, it's very hard to be able to do that as the slate kicks off, because if he plays and you play the backup, then you have nothing. So you have no way to really replace them. So it's a tough spot to put us in.
And the salary swap isn't even. So, it's a tough one to do. I agree. So wide receiver wise, there's so much to choose from here. And as always, I just love Lincoln Victor. I mean, as much as I want to get involved in the Washington passing game, Victor, I can even play as a one-off, just steady as she goes. The lowest recently is 16 points, but volume. 5 receptions was actually one of his lowest of the year. We've seen games, Oregon, you see the 16 catches, 11, 9, 12. Victor at that price, 6,800 compared to Dunzier, who's 1,700 more. Victor's going to be my favorite to play.
I love Victor. He is their go-to guy in a matchup that should be a shootout. So he has plenty of upside in terms of just catches alone, very high floor. So you could play Victor, no problems at all there. I also like Josh Kelly, who's the last 2 weeks has gone off. He's at 130 yards each of the last 2 games. Another receiver a little bit cheaper you could play in what should be a shootout.
Yeah, that's good. Kelly's been great, and I think you can play both. You could pair them up too. You really could. But if you don't play, switch them in and out, I think they're interchangeable at that salary. And then looking at Dunte, just, solid, right? But 8,500 is tough. I mean, I want to get some of him, but I might is McMillan a little bit better. He's had some good games early in the season. They were saying he could be back today. Looks like he didn't get back in an Oregon State game, but I was reading about him. And have you seen anything on McMillan?
I read the same thing you did. It took they say they want to get him more involved, but they said that last week and they didn't.
Yeah,
I think it's a risky call. He certainly has upside, but there's a lot of risk that comes with playing him.
Yeah, I mean, they need him. No, and I just say that from a standpoint of playing against, Oregon next week. It'd be nice to get him involved today. So keep an eye on that. If he does get involved, I mean, he clearly, Polk's good, but I feel like he could jump right into the number 2 spot at 6,600. So anything else in this game?
I think that's a wrap. That's a wrap for this week. Listen, this is a tough week with pricing. You really got to pick your spots. You find your game environments. You stack your games where you can. You hit the right environments. You hit the right value. I think you can have a really, really fruitful day.
Yeah, I agree. And to go over, I said earlier, top four. Jaden Daniels is in it for me at quarterback. John Reese Plumlee's in it for me. I'm trying to think. Fafita was one of the ones I'll definitely have in there. And then looking just even a little bit lower, I'm going to say Henderson is my 4th. I'm going to play. I already have him stacked in a bunch of lineups. So those are the 4, and they're all spread out between high to low is 64. That's what I like. Joel, you had a couple of good values in there. You mentioned too. I know the biggest one probably is Robbins.
I like Robbins. I think this is a really good spot at 4,100. Seeing as the way I'm viewing the slate, big picture, is I want to get a couple of these studs in my lineup. There's some high-priced guys that I want to play. So in order to do so, I got to have some value plays to go with them. So that's where I'm finding guys like Robbins, guys like King, Vele, that allow you to get some of those studs in your lineup.
Yeah, JT, thanks for checking in. Fave, it's got to be Gordon still. Listen, I can only get there if I really play some of the guys that Joel just mentioned. But I'm still big on RJ Harvey today. Been big on him all year. I think 7,200 is a good price for a guy that can be in the 30s. He's involved in the passing game. One other guy, we talked about earlier, I think is going to be someone that we want to get a lot of. I think Jaquindon Jackson will also be solid today against Colorado at 5,300. He's got to be, right? So those are kind of where, and we talked about Robbins earlier. How about you, Joel? Anybody else I missed there?
Yeah, I'm with you. I love Jackson, Robbins. You hit the nail on the head. Obviously, Gordon is the best raw play, but you got to pay up to get him. So value-wise, maybe not as much. But I think I'm pretty aligned with you. Those were the similar guys. And maybe one guy you didn't mention that I'll add to the list is LJ Johnson, who's another affordable running back that should get a lot of carries.
Yeah, and then Warren saying he hopes Daniels only goes for 40. And to be honest, I'm okay with that because I'm not going to be heavy on Daniels. Even though he's in my top 4, he's expensive. I am playing those lineups. We've talked about this before. Sometimes you got to ride the chalk, right? And I'll play some lineups with Daniels just because I need to at least be in some lineups if he does go for 60. If he goes for 40, I can punt on those lineups and be very happy that I got 80% other, 90% other quarterbacks in my lineup. So, yeah, I think that's a great point there. And the last thing before we get out of here, Joel, you like anything from the betting perspective today? All right, and we'll take any final comments too or questions.
I think today's a day where I'm going to prioritize props, right? There's some of these lines that we like, some of these environments that we like from a DFS perspective, where you can get some favorable over-under lines based on usage. So less game betting, and I think I'm more interested in finding some props, taking some of the overs on guys like Robbins that we mentioned, the Utah passing game that we mentioned, and that are in great environments. That's how I'm going to be betting today. How about you, Dave?
Yeah, I'll play a little of that. I mean, I'm obviously being light on the Ohio State Michigan DFS game. I'm gonna bet it, and I've been Michigan year in, year out recently. But today I'm flipping. I think Ohio State's just been better battle tested. I do think there's a somewhat of a kind of lean or disadvantage, I should say, for Michigan not having Harbaugh there. And I think this is day. Now, do I like McCarthy better than McCord? Yes. But Ohio State's motivated, and they've had a couple of those tests, that Notre Dame one being a little, big early in the season. It's going to be ugly. I think that's the way Ohio State has to win this game. They got to win this game like 21-17. It gets up in the high 20s. I don't think they can keep up. So the lower the score, the better for Ohio State. I'm going to take them with the points today.
I agree. I mean, if you noticed, Ohio State had their number, was dominating them. Then Michigan started cheating. They knew what plays were coming. Michigan won. Now they can't cheat anymore, so I'm going to go back to the team that probably is better without knowing the other team's plays. So I'm agreeing with you on Ohio State.
All right, love it. Yeah, and thanks, JT. And lastly, my Florida State Seminoles got a real shocker last week. And tonight we'll see if Rodemaker's got it. Listen, if you follow anything Seminole-wise, Rodemaker was like a 5-star recruit. So it's not like he's chopped liver. He's going to be okay. But it's different when you got to show up and play a game in the swamp at night. So we'll see. I'm very interested to see how they turn out, because that 4-5 race is real interesting in the college football playoffs. But I'll also say, with the loss of Ohio State, Michigan, and potentially Oregon, Washington next week, I think if Florida State goes undefeated, they're right. So
I agree. I can't imagine them if they go undefeated. I can't imagine them being kept out. That doesn't seem right. So a lot of still some interesting football to be played, a lot of fun to be had, and some money to be made today.
I agree. I'm starting to plug in. I got my 20 max lined up. I'm going to jump in and get a couple more of the main ones, and I can't wait to see how this pans out. I'm trying to take advantage because I think we got a lot of information out there, and it's why we went a little long today, because there's so much. This is spread out. Like Joel said, it's hard, but it's also spread out, and I think to a point, if you can be a little bit wide today, because we've been like narrowed in on certain games, I think that's your best strategy of taking something down. So show us your screens. I hope people win some big money. I hope it's us, but if it's not us, it's a Win Daily member. And with that, Joel, we're ready to go.
Good luck.
All right. Good luck, everybody, and see you next week.